Welcome to Your Mac Life for Wednesday, March 21st, 2018. I'm Shawn King. This is show number 1168, joined as always by my lovely co-host and beautiful wife, Melissa. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
You have a good week?
Happy spring.
Happy spring, yes. Yesterday was the first official day of spring at 9 a.m. our time. And we're having a lovely spring so far.
We really
My
are.
apologies to all of our friends in the Northeast United States and Maritimes of Canada who are getting slammed by their fourth nor'easter in a month. So it's still snowing and yucky, and so everyone stay safe and warm and listen to the show. Tonight begins the 25th year of me being an internet broadcaster. I don't say podcaster because I started doing this foolishness before podcasting was even a word. Started off in a little tiny real audio studio in Coquitlam, the little tiny ISP. I don't remember the name of the ISP. Had a real audio studio, which was weird, considering the internet was only 4 years old at that point. And myself and the original co-host, Adam, had decided that I was trying to find a way to record the sound of my own voice to send off to, I was a computer consultant, Mac consultant, which is Greek for unemployed, to send out the information rather than telling the customers the same thing over and over again. I thought, well, I'll record the information, put it on this internet thing, use this email stuff, and they can go click on this link and listen to so it was like an audio newsletter was the original idea. And so Adam and I did that for a while. Adam wasn't a Mac guy. Adam was a Unix geek, but he was interested in Macintosh stuff. So he was the co-host who was asking questions. How does this work? Why does this happen? That kind of stuff. It was great. And we did that for about 6 weeks. We started in, like I said, it was March 19th, 1994. And it was a Saturday. And after about 6 weeks, we realized we don't want to be here on Saturday afternoons. This is a beautiful city and we're young men. We don't want to be stuck indoors on Saturday afternoon. So we want to keep doing this, but when's the best time to do it? And we realized Sunday was right out because of football. Monday night, couldn't do it. Football. Tuesday night, there were some TV shows on that we wanted to watch. Thursday night, same thing. There was Friends and, whatever other TV shows were on at that time. Friday night, screw that. We're not doing it on Friday night.
No way.
So the only night that didn't have good TV was Wednesday nights. And that's why the show has been for 24 years on Wednesday nights at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time.
It was a process of elimination.
Because there was nothing on TV.
TV was very important back then.
Which is really much more important than it is now.
Yes.
That's for sure. So yeah, that's how the show originally got started.
And if the show was on, you had to watch it then.
Yeah, exactly. Or use this weird magnetic tape stuff to screw that. I got to be home now to watch TV. How far we've traveled. So we'll talk more about that later on in the show. As usual, we'll talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com about primarily Facebook. What a shitstorm they've stepped into. Of their own making, by the way. Facebook has always known that we don't like the way they collect data on us. But Facebook has shown over the years they don't freaking care. Well, maybe now they can start caring. The problem is, for so many of us, we're locked into Facebook. That's the way we communicate with friends and family and coworkers and people of like minds on knitting forums and motorcycle forums and photography forums, all that kind of stuff. You're kind of stuck and trapped with it. So we'll talk a little bit about that with Jim. We'll also talk to Melissa. She's learned many things about Facebook over the last few days, actually over the last few minutes. We'll talk to her about that too. And in our starting point photography segment, we're going to talk about a piece of rubber. We're going to talk about this little piece of rubber. It's very cool. It's called a Universal Lens Cap. This goes over top of your lens cap on your camera. It's from a company called KUVRDcamera.com. KUVRD camera.com. So we'll have a review of this cool little thing on the starting point photography segment. As always, please send us emails to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. And if you have any comments or questions or anything like that about photography or about Facebook or whatever.
Mo says, is it ribbed for your camera's pleasure? That's very good.
It does, in fact, have ribs. I'll grant you that. They're on the outside, so yes, it is ribbed.
It kind of is.
It is ribbed for their pleasure. That's right. Wackos. That's so typical of your Mac life. We started the show, like I said, just to get that information out there. And I still remember getting an email from someone at one point, and I noticed his email address was from a university in the United Kingdom. And I thought, how is he listening to this? Because I'd only sent the email out to my customers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, that's a great question, but how did you hear it? He said, so-and-so, one of my customers had sent him the link to it. And that's when this little light bulb, it's only about 10 watts, went off in my head. And I went, wait a minute, other people can listen to this. This was the internet. This was the idea of the internet. The people around the planet could participate, could read, could view, could listen to the same thing as everybody else. And that to me was a real revelation. It was really interesting. Mm. And so as I encouraged him to tell more people and told my customers, hey, pass this around to whoever you want. They can ask me questions and I'll try to answer them. Then it became a show. Then it became something of, rather than just me reading off the latest news about Apple, it became Adam and I trying to entertain people. And Adam was really good because, like I said, he was a complete beginning Mac user. And he was really good about reminding me, just by the questions he asked, to not talk geeky kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Mosquito says I should probably credit Mac Addict for including a segment on their CD from the show you were doing at the time. So as we started to get more popular, I started to send the information out to the various magazines. Mac Addict was one of them. Mac Home Journal, awful name, was the primary one because those are the guys who hired us to go to Macworld Expo in 1997. And that's when we really took off, when we got to that kind of promotion from the major magazines of the time. Mac Addict at one point used to put the whole show on a CD because they used to hand out CDs to people. These are the days of 28.8 modems. The show was a 30 megabyte download, but that would take you all day. So they'd put the month's shows on their CD, and we got a lot of listeners that way too. The funniest part was Real Audio at that time charged. You could have 60 simultaneous listeners for free using the Real Audio streaming server. If the 61st person tried to get on, they couldn't get on. They couldn't listen to the show live unless we paid Real Audio like stupid amounts. It was like $300 a month to get a larger license. And so that's why the pre-show starts at 5 o'clock. Because we told folks, rather than try to get in at 5:30, come early and sort of reserve your seat. And that's why I've always started broadcasting around 5 o'clock.
Interestingly enough, I was going to ask you that this evening.
Rather than just start it at 5:30, that's why we started it at 5 o'clock.
I see. There's a method to your madness.
The other interesting thing is I've gone back through emails and archives. It used to be 2.5 hours long. There were shows where I would do 6 interviews a show because all this stuff was new and interesting and cool and fun. And it took me a long time to find out that what I was doing was impossible. The fact that I was sitting here doing all this stuff by myself, there's 2 chat rooms running, there's software running, I screw it up on a regular basis. But the fact that I was doing all this stuff by myself, email and all that kind of stuff, because Adam was a Unix guy, he didn't have all this Mac stuff. He was watching the Real Audio stream and making sure it worked properly and asking me questions. But emails that came in during the live show, all that kind of stuff, I was doing on my own. And it wasn't until 5 years later that someone from the CBC had come in to watch the show. And afterwards, he wasn't from the CBC. He used to work with the CBC. CBC is Canada's broadcaster, and he worked with CBC Radio. He said, what you're doing is impossible, right? And I was like, I'm doing it. It's impossible. He said, well, with the emails and the phones and the live chat and that kind of stuff. I said, CBC does that all the time. So, yeah, but we've got 6 people doing it. We got one guy doing email, one guy doing chat, one guy on the phones, one guy on the website. The way you're doing it is not possible to be done. One person's brain can't work that way. And that's when I realized I was an idiot savant when it came to this stuff.
Idiot savant. Maybe it's not such a small light bulb.
More idiot than savant, but certainly. MacBand says, Monty, when I first found YML, the shows were regularly 3 hours long. They're not that anymore because, and this is maybe a failing of me, there's just not that much interesting stuff going on in the Mac community anymore. I've interviewed everybody I want to interview. There are a lot fewer people who are interesting enough that I haven't interviewed 10 times before. Andy Nako, I love Andy, but I interviewed him 20, 30 times. Jason Snell's a jerk, so that's why I stopped interviewing him. Chris Breen works for Apple now, so I can't interview him anymore. That was the other aspect. We used to interview people at Apple all the time. But Apple was such a pain in the ass to deal with when it came to interviewing people. And the turnover from Apple staff, especially the PR people, was like every 6 months I had to reauthorize myself with various people at Apple, proving to them that I knew what I was talking about when it came to doing interviews. Because Apple gets really, really uptight when it comes to the kind of interviews you can do, questions you can ask, all that kind of stuff. Basically, all you can really ask an Apple interview is what's in the press release.
Yeah.
And I knew enough not to ask her, what are you bringing out next week kind of stuff. I knew I couldn't ask those kind of questions because they couldn't answer them. And I don't want to waste any time having them say, I can't talk about that because it's a waste of time. But there were other questions that you could legitimately ask that if they knew what they were talking about, they could answer them, even if they were avoiding the question. But Apple get all bent out of shape whenever I try to do that stuff. So after a while, I just, you know what, Apple, fuck you. I'm just not going to bother interviewing you anymore. Mosquito says, I miss the interviews and YML goes a while without one. Yeah, and that's, I know you guys like the interviews, but I can't find on a regular basis people who I personally, I mean, what's always been one of the failings of the show is that if I'm not interested in the thing or the person or the product, I can't do a good interview.
No.
When back in the late 90s, when I had someone else doing the interviews for me, they would just say, hey, Shawn, you can talk to this person. I was like, okay. You could tell when I wasn't interested in that person. The interview just sucked. It was just awful. Because I had no interest in your product because it was set up by the marketing guys. Hey, Shawn, interview this guy. And I found out later it was because they were trying to sell ads to the guy. I didn't know that at the time. But that was probably my period of time when I did the worst interviews. Well, I didn't know who these guys were ahead of time. I didn't care about them ahead of time. I'm trying to do more interviews. I know folks like them, but it's got to be compelling for me. I think it's one of the reasons why I do good interviews. I think I do good interviews.
When you're interested.
When I'm interested in them, yeah. I'm not interviewing just for the sake of interviewing them, just because they're whatever. You know. I remember trying to do an interview with a guy who his company made video cards for Macintoshes. I don't care. Does it work? Yes, we're done. You know, I couldn't ask him about frame rate or resolution, because I didn't care about any of that stuff. And it was an awful interview. Awful interview. Later on in the show, we'll talk about my worst interviews ever. We'll get some of your emails. Thank you guys very much. If you want to send me emails about your first time listening to Your Mac Life, please do. Or one of the other versions of the show. Because Your Mac Life wasn't the original show. I don't even remember what the original name of the show was. I think it was called Apple Talk. Because that was the networking protocol back then, 25 years ago. At one point, it might have been called Mac Chat. I'm not sure. I honestly don't remember those early show names. It became Your Mac Life in 2001. Okay. That's the longest name I've had for the show. But the original ones, the names have been lost in the mist of time. I have no clue what I think one of them was called Apple Talk. Someone said that they've been listening since 1999. Which I think might be the oldest still living.
I know what the name.
I'm sure we've had quite a few listeners die. It's been a long time. So we'll talk about that. And again, later on in the show, we'll talk about this really cool Universal Lens Cap condom that we'll talk to you guys about. And yes, it is in fact ribbed for your camera's pleasure. Up next, though, we'll talk to a good friend, Jim Downpool of The Loop at loopinsight.com. This is Your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. This is Your Mac Life, joined in our phone room, as always, by our good friend Jim Downpool of The Loop at loopinsight.com. Jim, how you doing?
Doing good.
Are you all nice and tan from your time down there in Mexico?
Well, I wore jeans and a T-shirt, same I do here.
Thank Christ. I just, literally, I was just so scared at some point we were going to have a Jim in a Speedo picture on Twitter.
I have one.
And I'd have to claw my eyes out and quit Twitter forever.
It almost seems worth it to me.
People might pay you to do that. Yeah, fair point. Today is the 25th anniversary of my beginning broadcasting on the internet. What's your favorite memory of me? I'm kidding, dude.
No. You know, I do have some. Actually, because I wanted to congratulate you on your 25th anniversary.
Thank you.
I'm starting my 25th year as well.
Yeah, that's right. As a drunk.
As a drunk, yeah. I wasn't always a drunk. I was 3 months.
That's right. I was small at one point.
You know, it's funny, but I was thinking back over the past few days when I saw you post that this was your 25th anniversary show. And I remember when Peter Cohen was doing the show with you.
Yep.
And you called me one night and said, why don't you come on and do the show?
Yep.
Because Peter was sick or something. And I thought, fucking hell, here we go. Here we go. this is just going to be a big old battle right from the beginning, you know? And I was right. You know,
that's right.
That was probably what? I don't know how many years ago that was.
It's got to be 15 now.
Yeah. You know. So, and we've done the shows from some pretty crazy places.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Les Paul's nightclub in New York.
That's
and,
right. We did it for, I think my favorite one was doing it from the back booth at the JBL booth at Apple Expo in Paris.
Oh, yeah.
And the only reason we were there was because the folks at JBL were feeding us beer and wine and prosciutto.
Yep.
So we hung out there for the whole show.
Which you can do in Apple Expo Paris. I mean, you were drunk by 10.
Oh, hell yes, because you're out drinking the show floor.
Yep.
And smoke.
It was great. Oh, yeah. You can do anything. But I remember that one at Les Paul's place. It was a memorial after Les died, and they invited me down. I was sitting at a table with Van Zandt from Bruce Springsteen's band and Zach Wilde. And the first thing you said when we get on the air is, why the hell are you talking to me when you could be down there talking to them?
Exactly.
That was so funny. But I think I've only missed a couple of shows.
Yeah, and usually it's been technical difficulties, either on my part or yours.
Well, I don't have technical difficulties.
No, you don't? You don't?
No.
All right.
No. When my phone is going bad and I hang up, that's on purpose.
Secrets of the show all these years. Oh, sorry, I gotta go. Well, it's been wonderful having. I will say you've been. I don't do interviews very much anymore, but I look forward to talking to you each and every week and have for the past 15 years. So I do appreciate you being here whenever you can. So thank you very much for that, my friend.
It's been a pleasure.
I still remember one of the funniest times we ever had together was at Macworld Expo in New York City with the late, almost lamented Stan Flack sitting at Virgil's and eating that giant pile of meat.
Yes.
Obscene half a cow that we all sat there and ate, and all was just drowning in barbecue sauce.
Yeah. That was pretty good.
The good old days when we get away with that.
And then you had a party each Macworld.
That's right. Yep.
In San Francisco, and that was always fun.
They always were, and that's where you got the idea for the Beard Bash.
Is that it?
I'm trying to take credit for it. I don't know.
Okay, well, you can take credit for it. I don't care. That's it. That's where I got the idea.
That's right. The big news this past couple days has been Facebook has stepped into a gigantic shitstorm. It's of their own making, isn't it?
It is.
You got no sympathy for them, do you?
I don't.
No.
You know, and the sad part for Facebook is that this is only going to get worse before it gets better.
Oh, yeah.
Now, even my parents, I'm talking to my parents today in Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
They have the fourth nor'easter in 4 weeks coming on them. They wanted to talk about Facebook, you know? You know, the apocalypse is coming in a matter of hours there, and they wanted to talk about Facebook. But what's interesting about that whole thing is that people kind of knew that Facebook was using their data because if you don't pay for a product, you are the product. Yep. And that's exactly it. So they kind of knew that. They just didn't know how much. Yeah. And that's the scary part about this. Now, Facebook has proven that they are, for lack of a better term, reckless with your data.
Yep.
So the only thing that can happen from here is that the government will step in, and that's going to hurt them badly.
But I don't know if this government will step in. I think this U.S. government. I think other governments. I think the European Union will crack down. The Canadian government might crack down. But I don't think that this U.S. government has the stomach to do this or the interest. The Republicans tend to be on the side of big business, and the Republicans can use any number of excuses to not do this. I think what's going to happen is Facebook is going to be forced to be more transparent with how they use this data, but I don't think it's really going to hurt them in any real way unless this delete Facebook movement takes off, which I don't think it will either.
No, I don't think it will. I mean, Besides the fact that a company they paid $16 billion to wants everybody to delete Facebook.
Yeah, that's
come on. I agree with Gruber's point.
That's right. You asshole.
The guy who sold that sold his company, sold WhatsApp to
Yep.
Facebook,
made 6.5. He made $6.5 billion in that deal, by the way, folks.
Yeah, and he knew exactly what Facebook was doing. He'd be a fool not to, and he's not a fool. So he knew exactly what was happening, and he steps up now and says delete Facebook. Come on. And that's why I said yesterday when I posted that, just one word, damn.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's so incredibly hypocritical. I think part of the problem, though, and one of the advantages Facebook as a corporation, as a company has, is this tweet from, I saw, he said, there's no point telling people to leave Facebook or other social media. You can't escape it. The only way is to force government, to force Facebook to give back the data and control over to the public. We can't quit Facebook for a lot of people. As I said off the top of the show, you've built a social network a lot of people have using Facebook, whether it's, what the hell are you doing?
Well, I have these gigantic champagne bottles of Heineken. And I just popped one open. There's like 5 beer per champagne bottle.
So it's just an aperitif.
So there you go.
God. So the problem the problem is we can't quit Facebook. We're kind of trapped in the web of Facebook like a fly. We're stuck there. What we need to do is have people be more aware of what Facebook can do with our data and does do, and Facebook has to be more upfront with what they do with that data.
Well, that goes for every company,
True.
though. Yeah. Every single one of them. What do they and that is what's so good about what Apple's been doing for the last 5 or 10 years.
Yep.
We don't want your data. It's encrypted. We can't see it. We don't want it. Yep. We want nothing to do with it. And they've repeated that for a long time. So when people look now and say, well, Google or Facebook or Snapchat or WhatsApp or, any of these, mm-hmm. Well, I'm not paying for those. So what are they doing? And I think those are good questions for people to ask. And to be honest, I think I would trust Google more than Facebook.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, I think that they're in a world of hurt right now. But one thing that I will say I didn't agree with over Twitter today, I saw that Mark Zuckerberg posted his, response to all of this. And people were giving him shit for not apologizing.
Yep, Gruber did, yep.
I don't think he should have apologized.
Why not?
Well, if he apologizes, that means that he did something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And Facebook cannot afford to have it look like the CEO thinks that they did something wrong. Right. I think what Facebook is going to do is say, Analytica did something wrong, Cambridge Analytica.
Yes.
We didn't do anything wrong. They did something wrong. So they don't have anything to apologize for. So from a strategic point, I think it was wrong for people to expect Zuckerberg to admit any kind of fault or apologize in any way. Whoever gave him the advice not to do that was smart.
I think the aspect of that is that we just in general want people to apologize for their mistakes. I think the problem is Facebook doesn't see they've made a mistake. Facebook sees this as this is the way our business operates. We don't have to apologize for the way the business operates. Cambridge Analytica did the bad thing with the data or the good thing with the data that they got from Facebook. Facebook isn't acknowledging the fact that we're upset over how they allowed that data to be used in ways that weren't clear to us. And in Facebook's favor weren't clear because we as users didn't want to know, or were too lazy to read the terms and services, or didn't check our privacy settings, or things along those lines.
Okay, so, wow. There is a black squirrel here on the fence that's like as big as a German Shepherd.
And he's just chirping away at you, isn't he?
I might have to go inside. I'm afraid he's going to eat me.
There might be squirrel steaks in the barbie for you tonight.
Oh, man. Where were we?
That's okay. Move on.
No. I wanted to make a point about that. I really don't think that people care as much about privacy as what they pretend to. And I said this to my parents today. Now, I will say that my mother is the exception. She turns off everything that could share anything, anywhere.
Good for her.
And she always has. She's like fanatical about it. So she cares about her privacy. But the average person must have known that Facebook was doing something. Now, like I said before, we didn't know the extent to what they were doing.
No.
But you knew that something was going on because you get all these targeted ads.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden they show up on Facebook, and, you know,
yep.
It's sharing back and forth data all over the place, and you give them access. Now, when was the last time that you read the terms of service agreement?
Oh, I never read them for anything.
Right. My mother reads them. Yeah. She reads them. So, I mean, she is fanatical about it. I don't read them. I just say, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so the average person will go in, they'll press agree, they'll link apps. Well, that gives them even more data because apps are sending back and forth all this information.
Yep.
But think about this. I mean, you get an email or you go to, I don't know, Walmart.
Yep.
And they say, if you answer this questionnaire and fill out this form, we'll give you $5 off your next purchase. Yep. Well, people are flocking to that.
Absolutely.
And giving all of their information, you know, where they live, what they like, all of that stuff, and they get their $5 thing. And then something like this from Facebook happens, and they say, oh, my God, well, what are you doing with my information? Well, no, a lot of times it's what you are doing with your information.
Agreed.
So I am sure somewhere in Facebook's user agreement that this stuff is probably all laid out. I still haven't looked. I don't care to look. But these companies do this based on the fact that we will give up information for a product, for a coupon, for, you know, any kind of deal. We'll give up whatever you want. So is it really all Facebook's fault? I'm not trying to defend Facebook.
Sure.
I mean, I haven't actually used the site in a couple of years. I posted one picture, I think, in a year, in the last year. And that I actually titled that picture "Proof of Life."
Yes.
So
yes, yeah. I checked your Facebook profile this just today, just because I knew we were going to talk about it. Yeah, the last time you posted anything was March 10th, and before then was that Proof of Life pictures. Yeah, so you are not a regular user of Facebook.
Yeah, so you know they can. I don't usually like things. I don't. You know, I'm hardly ever on there. No. So you know,
It certainly
but if you
sorry, go ahead.
Ask a young person who Facebook is for, and they'll say it's for old people. It's for my parents.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, and the parents think that they are smart enough not to get caught in these traps.
Yep.
So Facebook is not going to go away because of this.
No.
I mean, the parents will keep it going.
Our friend Rich Mogul had an interesting tweet. He said, now would be the perfect time for Apple to launch Apple Communities, shared private spaces for groups, schools, and families to share photos, calendars, updates, all seamlessly integrated with Apple hardware and software, but with standalone apps for Android and PC. He's obviously talking about resurrecting eWorld. For those of us who are old enough to remember that, Apple used to have an online community called eWorld, which was a ghost town, but Apple didn't have very many users. Now they've got millions and millions of both Mac and iOS users. Do you think now would be a good time for Apple to resurrect eWorld or a variation thereof?
No, I don't really think so. Not like that. I mean, if you were doing something for education, maybe, where students and teachers could interact, okay. But I don't think so. I mean, to me, the internet is the community. I mean, I don't. We all go on Twitter and, we check things back and forth and we post on forums and we do all these different things. But I don't know that people want that type of relationship with Apple anymore. Yeah. At one point that was a big thing. AOL was also a big thing.
That's right.
So, but that was the relationship we had. And at that point, the internet a lot of it was through Usenets and things like that. So we didn't have the graphical interface that we have now, but with those communities, we did. AOL was a wonderful community that you could go in and talk to people and do all this stuff. But I just don't think that we need that at this point. Yeah, but it could be useful for education and things like that.
Mosquito says it's way too big a customer base now to try to wrangle for conversations that'll degenerate into tech support or trash talk. And he's right. I think that's going to be the problem Apple would have, is that it's now way too big for them to herd those cats. You mentioned education. Apple has announced, surprisingly enough, next week, I think it's next week, a education-focused media event in a high school in Chicago. Are you going?
I was invited, but I'm not going, no.
Why do you think this city, that venue?
Well, it seems clear to me that they have an education initiative that this particular school has bought into and wants to be one of the first to do. So what that initiative is, we have to wait and see until Tuesday. But Apple has, from the very beginning, always been big in education.
Yes.
And they've always tried to cater to educators and students. So this is, I think, more than anything, this kind of goes back to Apple's roots. Mm-hmm. So while it was different for sure, not a bad thing at all.
I think it's one of those things that it's kind of maybe not obvious, but certainly a possibility that Apple announces a new iPad. I think they would announce an iPad that has Apple Pencil support as opposed to just the Apple Pros. I think they might announce a new MacBook for schools, not for schools specifically, but a new lower price MacBook. I think we're going to see some of those things. And then, I think the venue is important. I think that particular high school, they're going to announce some sort of programs for teachers, for students, for high school, for K-12. There's a reason why Apple's done this at this location at this time of year. People think that back to school time, August, is when companies do this stuff. They don't. They do it in the late winter, early spring, so companies can make buying decisions about new products come the next school season. So that's why I think Apple's bringing out new products at this event to show people, hey, you can buy these things by the pallet load for September 2018.
You nailed that whole piece, because the misconception, and it's been a misconception for many years, that the school buying season is August, September. Yep. It's not. Nope. The school buying season is like, April, May, and June. Yep. That is not students, schools.
That's right.
That is the school buying season. And that's when their budgets are renewed for the next year. That's when they figure out what they want to do for the next year. So, it's perfect timing. Is an iPad part of next week? I would guess yes. Yeah. I mean, that's the first thing that I thought of. A Mac? Maybe. maybe, you know, sure. That'll be part of it. That could easily be part of it. But I think that there's something more than Mac and iPads. And I think that what you said about the venue is perfectly, absolutely correct. That the venue this time has a lot of meaning. So I would look for a big education initiative next week.
Yep, I agree. And like you said, that's part of it too, is that Apple, along with music, education has always been part of what Apple considers its DNA. So that's why it fits so well. They don't always follow through on that, but they certainly consider that that's part of the structural integrity of the company.
I would even say more than music.
True.
You know,
yeah.
Apple always talks about music as being part of its DNA. I would say education is even bigger than that.
Let's move on to a story you and I have talked about on and off, autonomous cars. It was an unfortunate accident or crash in Arizona this past week where a woman was killed by an Uber car. Not surprising anyone that was an Uber car. But the numbnuts over at Mac Observer, John Martellaro, autonomous cars that kill people will kill the technology for good. Do you agree with that?
No.
That's
absolutely
stupid.
Not. Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. I mean, I said this when that guy was watching the video and ran into a truck and was killed. I feel bad for him and his family.
Yep.
But it's not going to kill the technology. According from what I read, and I get that the police don't, based on their comments, they don't understand the technology of radar and LiDAR, but they said that even a person driving the car would not have been able to avoid this accident.
That's right. Yeah.
So when you look at that and the fact that they're not holding the driver personally responsible, which is why they have a driver in a self-driving car, by the way, to avoid this type of thing. And, you know, that driver said she just appeared and it was done. Now, when you look at technology in non-self-driving cars, accident avoidance technology, they can stop on a dime and to avoid an accident. You know, somebody that stops quickly in front of you, they will stop for you if you don't react in time. And that's proven to work. Yeah. But yet this happened. You know, the technology, I think, is solid. I feel bad for her. I feel bad for her family too, but I don't think the technology is going anywhere. I mean, Uber suspended all of the self-driving cars while they investigate, which was the right thing to do.
Toyota did the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's not much that you can do, though.
I think Martellaro is so typical of these people who can't think past their own biases. Autonomous cars bad. Autonomous cars that kill people mean we will never have autonomous cars. That's idiotic. Autonomous cars are the future. There's no doubt about it whatsoever. There's
none.
Logic and common sense and anecdote and data shows you that autonomous cars over the long haul will be safer. There's just no way around it. But there are going to be accidents. There are going to be crashes. There are going to be deaths. But thousands of people die every single day on the roads of America and Canada and other places. So I'm not saying that these deaths are worth it with autonomous cars. I'm just saying it's an inevitable part of human beings being allowed anywhere near where 2-ton vehicles operate.
I popped the champagne bottle again.
Good for you. There's no way the Uber can predict human behavior. If someone jumps out in front of your car, you can't predict that as a human being or as a computer. They're walking down the street and they suddenly make a sharp left and jump in front of your vehicle with 6 inches to spare. The car can't stop
No.
in that time. So
No.
this is not, as far as we can understand, this is not a problem with autonomous vehicles themselves. It might be a problem with human beings. But even if it was a problem with autonomous vehicles, it's not going to stop them. The technology is going to move forward. Whatever problem this was or wasn't, it's going to get solved, and we're going to move on. And in 5 years' time, no one will even think about this accident.
No, but, and God, this is an awful thing to say, and I realize it. But any new technology that comes out has hiccups. It has things that you cannot predict. And that's why it's awful. I don't mean to say that these deaths are, a hiccup.
Yep.
But I don't think in either of these instances that the technology was necessarily to blame.
Agreed.
Especially in this one, and it's not going to go anywhere. It is here to stay, and I expect in the next several weeks that Uber will reopen its testing of autonomous vehicles.
Yep, absolutely. It is the future, and as Monty says, that genie's out of the bottle and cannot be put back in.
No, that is exactly right. You should be interviewing Mosquito and Monty, not me. They have better phrases than I do.
I've thought about it, but they both have accents that are just awful. I can't stand listening.
Well, and they're sober all the time.
There's that too. I got all for Mosquito and fuck you, Shawn. I'm not sober. And on that happy note, we'll let Jim go. Jim, as always, my friend, thank you very much.
Why are we leaving? It's your 25th. I thought I was here for the whole thing.
Is there something else you want to talk about?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
here's something that we haven't talked about. The student walkouts that happened last week, and good on those brave students for doing this. Did you read this story that in where was it? One of the groups of kids in Arkansas, when they came back, the school administrator said, you have two options. We can throw you out of school for 5 days, or we can give you the paddle. Oh. We can literally spank you.
Well, that's a pervy thing.
These are high school students, and they're saying they were going to spank you.
Okay. Okay, we're done.
That's just bizarre.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
The other aspect of this whole story that I found just awful, and Melissa and I talked about it on last week's show, was the fact that, have you seen these tweets from these universities that say, no kid who participated in the walkout will be punished and not be allowed to go to Brandeis University or University of Michigan or those other kind of things? I can't believe that these universities even had to say this. These kids were doing a peaceful walkout.
Right.
They can be punished by their school. I have no problem with that because, you're not allowed to leave school grounds from this time to that time. You can't ditch classes. I get that. But spanking them or even making it seem like they might not be able to get into university for doing a peaceful protest, what were your thoughts about that?
Well, I didn't hear about the spanking thing. That just seems a bit pervy to me. There's some issues there. I would check that school's computers. The rest of it, look, we're in a society in North America and most of the rest of the world where you can hold a peaceful protest and not expect to get punished in any way for holding that protest.
Yes.
And that's a society that we've built. And I don't think that people should be punished for that. It's unfortunate that some people don't believe that.
It was a legal thing to do. It says in the American Constitution that the people have the right to address the government for the redress of grievances. You're allowed to do that. Peaceful protest is a time-honored tradition. Look at the civil rights movement from Martin Luther King and all those other, the women's suffragette movement and even the temperance movement. Peaceful protest is allowed in the United States, and punishing those kids either with something as barbaric as a spanking or as idiotic as, well, you can't come to our university because you walked out of school, is ridiculous. Now, that being said, you and I grew up in the same area of Nova Scotia, and I don't know about you, but they allowed paddling in my elementary school.
Well, that was 150 years ago, though. I mean, it was either at that point you had a choice. Well, paddle you or burn you at the stake. Which would you rather?
Well, make you go churn butter.
You know, I mean, come on. We saw you admiring one of those horseless buggies. You know?
Did you ever get the strap when you were a kid?
No.
Really? See, I
No.
find that hard to believe, knowing you.
No, never did.
So you became a jerk later in life.
Much later in life, yeah. Actually, I think it was that first show that I did with you. Yeah, and that seems to be the one. You were the trigger.
With a little bit of adaptation, I found the perfect camera tool for you, Jim.
Okay, I'm ready.
This is called the prosthetic photographer. Okay. What it is it's a gadget that you attach to your camera, and it's got a handle underneath it. So you're holding the camera out in front of you as if it was a
like a selfie stick.
Like a selfie stick, exactly. You're kind of holding it, but you're holding it more of a camera, like a grip on it.
Wonderful.
And on top of it is a device that contains an algorithm trained to distinguish between high and low quality photos. As
Wonderful.
you point it to the scene, it analyzes all the time. When the AI recognizes a good photo, a small electric shock is sent to your hand, making you press the button.
Damn.
The button is connected to the shutter, so when you press it, you'll take a photo.
Oh, my God. Wow.
I want this to work in reverse. When you press the button and take a bad photo, it gives you a shock.
Oh, I'd be dead. Okay, I got to say something about photos, and then you can cut me off and you can go and do your 25th anniversary.
Okay.
I got to say something about photos.
Okay.
So when I was in Puerto Vallarta, took a photo of the sunset.
Yes.
And I had people on Twitter telling me it was fake. It's the one good photo I have ever taken. Ever. And people were challenging me so much to the point where I had to say, I don't understand what you're saying. I really don't. And I look back over the threads and I thought, oh my God, they think this is a fake photo. One guy even said fake. Photoshop. No, it was straight from the iPhone 10 to Twitter. And, you know, I expected the normal backlash of shit that I get whenever I post a photo. Well, it's blurry. We can't see anything. Yeah, well, you know, it's my photo. Of course it's blurry. But, yeah, they thought it was fake.
But I got to tell you, that was a really good photo.
Well, you know.
I mean, did you see this photo ahead of time, like in your mind's eye, or you just walk out in the balcony and go click?
Yeah, second, the latter.
See, I was hoping you'd say you thought about the photo.
No. I mean, I was there, and you raise the camera and click, and oh look, the sun's coming through the palm trees. That's great. And then of course you had to chime in and tell me I got the fucking horizon wrong and shit. And here I am, after I posted it and people started saying, oh, this is a really good photo, it's fake. Then I looked at it and thought, damn, that is a good photo. and then you chime in and make me feel like shit about the photo.
No, I'm sorry if you felt like shit, but I certainly, that was not in my attention. What I should
have just pointed everybody to you and say, look, see, Shawn knows it's not a good photo.
I'm actually showing the photo on the video feed, and here's the before photo, the shot that Jim took, and Jim did a wonderful job. You've caught that wonderful silhouetting because you pointed. I know what you did, because if you say you didn't plan this, you pointed your camera, and the center object is the sun. So because the sun's so bright, it made everything else dark, and that's how you created that silhouette effect, which is really kind of cool. If there had been a person there, the same thing would have happened. The person would have been really dark, and then that nice kind of cool shadow thing. And the sun.
I planned all of that.
Yeah, you planned all that, exactly. But I'm saying is the next time you can do that, you can create this effect on your own simply by pointing your camera at the sun, and anything in front of the sun is going to look like it's a shadow. It's called a silhouette shot. And so by accident, you took a silhouette shot, which is really good. Congratulations. The only problem with it, as I said to you on Twitter, is that beginner mistake of your horizon is dead center. So the next time, all you have to do is just get a little more sky in the photo by tilting your camera up, or a little more ground, or in this case, water in the photo by tilting your camera down. In this case, because the sky is so beautiful, all you have to do is tilt your camera up just a little bit so the horizon line isn't dead center. If you have the grid turned on in your iPhone, that will help you a lot. If you go into the settings of the phone and turn on grid, the grid will show you when you've got that line straight to the center of your photo. And all you do is just tilt it a little bit, and everything is going to be really pretty. Monty says Jim's photo is quite good. MacMan, holy shit, that's a great shot. MacMan also says, I think Jim is using some liquid inspiration.
So, to be clear, I understood nothing after I'm sharing Jim's photo on the screen. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So, lost cause on this side.
No, not at all. You're not a lost cause. All you got to do is just a little bit of thinking. I know that's hard, but a little bit of thinking will make these shots so much, just a tiny bit better. Like I said, it's a great shot to begin with, and with just a little bit. But the other thing is, too, I cropped it and sent it to you via Twitter. So you can also fix this stuff in the editing after you take the shot. All I did was just crop out the bottom of the photo so there was more sky in the photo than there was ground, and it's a lot better.
So let me ask you something.
Yeah.
The photo that I posted was straight from the iPhone 10.
Yes.
Straight onto Twitter. I took the photo, posted it, and I was just impressed that, hey, here's our balcony, and and here's what the sunset looks like. That's the only reason I posted it, not because I thought it was a great photo. So can you tell that there was no photoshopping done or anything like that? Can you look at that and say, okay, there's no filters, there's no Photoshop? Will that come up in the metadata or whatever it is?
If I had the original, yes. If I had the original, I could look at what's called the EXIF data and see that it was taken with an iPhone, and probably see that there was no edits done to it, yes.
All right.
Also some location data, which is something you might want to think about, that sometimes you can turn your location services off. So, for the example, if you'd said you were in Puerto Vallarta, but someone looked at the EXIF data and saw that you were in fact in, Cuba instead, they could find that kind of information out. But if you don't care, people know where you are, then go ahead and post without worrying about that stuff.
Yeah, I didn't care.
Yeah.
So will that information show up on the photo that I posted on Twitter?
I don't know. It's a good question. I can check, folks. During if somebody wants to do that for us, hang on a second. Let me get this. I'll grab the.
Oh God, damn it! My champagne bottle of Heineken's out.
You drank 5 beer already?
Yeah, through the show.
Nice. Arcsign says, Sean, ask Jim if he noticed the palm trees or just wanted the sunset. Good question.
What?
Did you even see the palm trees, or were you looking past the palm trees out at the sunset?
The palm trees were in the way.
Yeah. So you saw the palm trees were in the way.
Yeah. Well, they were in the way. I wanted the sunset.
Monty says, I think Twitter filters the EXIF data. Yeah, that's why I said if I had the original, I'd be able to do that. But probably Twitter strips that stuff out.
Bastards.
I'll bet Facebook doesn't, though.
Yeah, I bet they don't. Because they want to know where you were and show you Mexican ads.
Exactly.
Oh, my God, that black squirrel is back again. I'm going inside.
Go kill it. Go get some. Get yourself some squirrel steak.
It's big. Huge.
Folks, you're talking to Jim Darrell of The Loop at loopinsight.com. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, see you later, buddy.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Bye.
Bye.
I didn't want to take up too much of Jim's time, but I appreciate him wanting to stick around. In the starting point photography segment, I got a review of a very interesting little gadget. It's called the Universal Lens Cap from the folks at KUVRD KUVRDcamera.com. KUVRD camera.com. Awful name. The KUVRD thing is not obviously, but coveredcamera.com is the website. KUVRD. And it's simplicity itself. It's just a piece of rubber, soft rubber. It's that small. It can be deformed and pop into shape. So it's a lens cap for your lenses. One of the problems that I personally have always had with the usual plastic lens cap is I lose these goddamn things on a regular basis. I put them down and walk away from them like I do so many other things. I will hand them to someone else and forget to get them back. They will fall out of bags. They will fall off the lens because very few cameras I've used does the lens cap fit on really, really well. I've got my beloved Nikon D600, and even this one, the lens cap is a better one because I have to pinch in the center of it. These Olympus ones, you have to pinch on the outside. The problem with pinching on the outside is all it takes is a bit of a nudge on one of their edges for it to pop off. You don't have to pinch both. The Nikon one for this particular lens is a little better because it's a pinch from the middle. But I've still opened up my camera bag and seen that my lens cap has fallen off because it got hooked on something. So I'm always worried about that. One of the things I always tell people is to get yourself a filter for your lens. It's just a screw. For example, this one is a polarizing filter. Get a circular filter for your lens. And it can be just a neutral filter, just a piece of glass. Because what happens is if you scratch up the lens element, the front element on your lens, you got to buy a new lens. But if you scratch up a filter, all you have to do is buy the new filter. Lens, $700, filter, $30. So I'd rather spend $30 on a scratched up lens than another $700 to $1,000 on a scratched up filter than $700 to $900 on a new lens. That being said, I constantly lose these things. For those of you who know me or followed me for a while or followed me on Twitter, know I hate Kickstarters. You know what a Kickstarter is? Hang on, sorry, I didn't turn your microphone on. There you go.
So a company that's just starting out with their idea.
No.
On the
Kickstarter.com is a website.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't know.
That lets people say basically, hey, I've got a really great idea, but I need $10,000.
Okay.
Give me $1. Give me $5. Give me $10. If my idea goes forward, or if I get the $10,000, you get my idea for a discounted price.
Okay.
So, and it can be anything. It can be an album. It can be a movie. It can be a pencil. It can be anything that the inventor can think up, but doesn't have the resources, can't borrow the money from mom, he doesn't have a business behind him yet, those kinds of things. The idea of Kickstarter is really neat. The implementation of Kickstarter is quite often awful, especially for Kickstarters that don't have any experience in the thing they're talking about. So what happens a lot with Kickstarter is this guy has an idea, he creates prototypes of it, because you can create prototypes nowadays with 3D printers for next to nothing. Decides that this is something that's worth inventing, starts a Kickstarter for it, but he's got no business experience, he's got no graphic design experience, he's got no experience in all the other aspects of it. And he says, this will be ready by May 2018. June 2018 comes by, July, August, September. Quite often, a lot of Kickstarters are months and months, if not years behind, or they never happen. And they've taken your money, by the way. Because once the Kickstarter vests, once the date vests and they've made their money, Kickstarter gives them the money. So if they bugger off with the money, you're screwed. You're not getting it back. So I always tell folks, think of a Kickstarter as basically a donation to that guy's project.
Right.
Don't expect to get anything back from it. Hope you will, but try to think of it as it's not going to happen.
Okay.
So that's why I avoid Kickstarters as much as I possibly can, because there are some great ideas out there, but they may not be implemented all that well.
Is that what this is?
This was a Kickstarter. It started off as a Kickstarter. And like I said, I hate Kickstarters. But I went to someone told me about it. I went to the website. I liked the idea of the product.
Yeah.
The company had previous experience with successful Kickstarters, which helped me a lot decide that, yes, I wanted to to do this. And they had a good deal. I think it was $30 and you got 4 of these things.
Okay.
Right now they're $30 each. That's the other advantage of supporting a Kickstarter, is that when you do, you get hopefully significant discounts on the product when it becomes available. So I got 4 of these for $30. I wasn't expecting a whole lot. I liked the idea. The concept was kind of neat, but I wasn't expecting it to be this good when I got it in my hands. And like I said, it's just a piece of plastic, piece of rubber. It's not as thick as neoprene, but it feels kind of neoprene-ish. It's soft enough and supple enough that you can turn it inside out without any problem. So if you have any issues about cleaning it, it's easy to drop it in soapy water to clean it off. It goes back into shape very easily. But the neat thing about it is that it fits on your lens. Now you have to stretch it over the lens. And here's an example of it on Melissa's Olympus M1. It fits quite nicely over there. There's a bit of a gap, and it does come off with some pressure, and it goes on very easily. The bigger the lens, the better the grip. So this is me going to put this on this 24-120 lens. So hang on a second. Basically what you do is you stretch it over the lens. So I grab one end, pull it, stretch it down, and then pull it down over the thing. So it took that long to put the lens cap on. And now the lens is protected. But it also is not going to fall off. That is not going to slide off. I'm not able to pull that off. That's not coming off in your bag. It's protected here. The other thing I like about it is there's no grip. They had a chance to put a Grippy Hood logo right there, and they didn't. Thank you for not doing that. Curved cameras. So it stays on real nice. There's not the only negatives about this are the same as the negatives about this. These things can easily get lost. I peeled this off. Slam. I peeled this off from like other lens caps. I'll put it in my pocket. It could come out of my pocket. I could lose it. I could put it on the ground. So that's no different than a traditional lens cap. So I'm not going to knock the Universal Lens Cap for being the exact same as a regular lens cap. You can also put it on over top of your regular lens cap too. It fits perfectly well over top of this lens cap. If you wanted that double protection, if you wanted to use both things, not a problem. I think they're $30 each now. They also work on the back of a lens too. So this is a lens that's covered on both ends by the Universal Lens Cap. I think this is a brilliant idea, and it works really, really well. Again, here's how easy it is to peel that off. And because this end of the barrel is a little narrower, it's just as easy to stretch it over the back of this thing and just pull it down over top of the lens cap that's already there. They do say don't use your fingernails because you don't want to rip this stuff, but it just pops over there, and now both ends of my lens are protected. Love this thing. This is a really, really brilliant little idea.
Les is asking, and I haven't noticed if it attracts cat hair, which is a good question. We have 2 cats, and I haven't noticed that it's attracted dust.
That is a good question. It is that kind of material. I'm sure there's going to be some staticness to this, but I think because of you touching it on a regular basis, that would release the static electricity from it. But this has been sitting on my desk now for a week or a couple of weeks since we got it, and it's a little dusty, but nothing you can't just wipe off. Not on the inside. There's nothing on the inside. Just the usual dust that you get from the usual apartment type stuff. And again, just dropping this into the soapy water would be fine, but it doesn't seem to attract cat hair, even though there's a cat that walks across this desk on a daily basis. So that's a good question.
Yeah.
So if you get a chance, check them out. Again, their website is an awful name, KUVRD camera.com, and it's a universal lens cap. The neat thing is it fits on any number of lenses. The only issue, and this was an interesting one, is if you have a fisheye lens, it might not work as well with a fisheye lens because fisheye lenses protrude out from the barrel of the body of the camera. So you might have an effect where the lens itself is sticking up here. So it might not work as well with regards to that. So you might have to.
Macman thinks it might be problematic if you want to take a quick shot, but I don't think so. To me, the other lens caps are problematic for that too.
Yeah,
Well,
but I
we want
think
to do a quick shot because you've got to have that dexterity. Because I get cold hands, that's why I
Yes.
think, and I need that dexterity. Whereas this, I didn't need it.
I think the issue with the quick shot thing is that happens if you are a forgetful photographer anyway. That you've already forgotten to take your lens cap off. For me, the first thing I do when I take my camera out of my bag is take the lens cap off because I want to shoot with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I strip it off and I drop it in the bag or put it in my pocket or whatever. Wandering microphone. Whatever it might be. So yeah, that might be an issue if you found that you've had that happen to you in the past. Just grab your cable from there and stretch it.
Well, in Australia, I mean, I would, because following Shawn, I would take the lens caps and I would put them either in the front of the backpack or in my pocket or somewhere to think, okay, the lens cap has been put away. But if I had dropped that lens cap in the sand, it would have that wouldn't have been an issue.
Yeah, one of the issues, and this has happened with these lens caps, you drop them in the sand gets
Just
in those little
covers it.
grooves in there, and you put the lens cap on, you can hear it grinding away.
Yeah, it's not
whereas that
such
would not
simple
happen
lines.
with this one.
The only thing, and I love it, you can scrunch it up
Yeah.
and like stick it in anywhere. Yeah, I like
That's what
that.
she said.
But my one thing that I would suggest to them is make them a brighter color.
Sure,
I
yeah.
would like that. I would like to be able to go, there it is in the bottom of my backpack, or the black kind of blends in.
Yeah, most people have black camera bodies and camera lenses, so that's why they're going with black.
I know.
But yeah,
just a
red would be
thought I
kind of
had.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
Blue, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, that might be in their plan, but that is, as Monty says, a great idea.
Yeah.
Arcsign says, I'd like an elastic strap to attach the universal lens cap to the camera body, just in the same obstructiveness as a hard lens cap. I've never been a big fan of anything that hangs off my lens. I've seen lens caps that attach to the camera lens, and so when you take the lens cap off, it sort of hangs and dangles here. I'm not a big fan of those. I don't like that they might catch. And same with an elastic strap or anything else along those lines. I did see a really neat camera strap one day that had another piece where the lens cap slid into it.
I like
so you have
that.
this camera holder strap on your chest. You pop the lens cap off. This slid in there. And so you could always find it. The problem was the one I used didn't stay in there very well. So it wasn't
These you could
a good
squish
solution.
up. You could squish in there.
Yeah, this is a pretty good solution. I just want to check to make sure I'm getting I'm telling you guys the pricing information right. Again, KUVRD camera.com. The $30 a piece. You can get them. I think if you order 2 or 3, you get them at a discount. But they're expensive-ish now. But for something that protects your camera that well, I think it's worth it. So
I think they're a great gift. And then what did we do,
a great
Mr.
gift,
King?
right,
It's
yeah.
a great gift. But then what did we do, Mr. King? Because they come in these little containers, these really cool little plastic containers.
Did you bring one?
I forgot to bring one.
Go get one. Darn it! I knew there was. I've been sitting here for the whole show, trying to think. There's something I'm supposed to get. There's something I'm supposed to bring. There's something I'm supposed to show to the audience. I couldn't remember what the hell it was. One of the things that I liked about this was that even with the packaging was really.
Because they look so pretty,
Okay,
red and green.
The packaging was really kind of cool, and they went well and above what they needed to do packaging wise. So they come in these nice little plastic containers. I don't want to throw them away.
No, they were lovely.
Because they were so nice. So what we've used, because I'm now living in the boondocks with a bunch of hippies,
Oh, my lordy.
we have to recycle everything. We have to compost. I'm composting. I'm literally taking garbage and saving it for later. And then that garbage will then be put on our food. Anyway, so Melissa has got me into recycling and composting, again, against my frickin' will. So rather than throw these things into the trash or throw them into recycling, we use them for spices. So there's the paprika container. There's the bay leaf
right.
container. They're perfectly
Doesn't that
good.
look nice?
They're perfectly good plastic
Paprika? Bay leaves.
This is her idea.
My
That
idea.
was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I was like looking at these going, we should keep these because they're really,
Anybody
really nice.
can use it. That's fine if you buy the product.
You
Put your spices
it comes in
in,
these
or
cool
whatever.
things and
Yeah.
put pennies in it, whatever you want to put in it.
There's no such thing as pennies
No
anymore.
kidding. I thought it was a brilliant idea. You have many of those. Clearly, a homebrew idea seems to work well. Monty says, I saw a pro shooter who had some industrial Velcro on his lens caps and camera strap. He stuck his lens caps to a strap across his chest. Yeah, there are options. That's
Depends
for sure.
though if you're trying to shoot wildlife or something, you don't want to go.
Right.
Everything's gonna run away.
Oh, there goes that deer. Got some email for you guys. Jeff Matheson from State College, Pennsylvania. I don't tune in as often as I used to, but still value your rants, discussions on the Mac issues of the day. I can't say exactly when I started listening, but I seem to recall you had a woman co-host who was a flight attendant. That was Hillary, she actually works for Apple France now. Congrats on the 25th year, Shawn. You've carved an interesting niche, doing what you love and providing a good show while you do it. Jeff Matheson. Thanks, Jeff. Bart Jackson from here in Vancouver says, shortly after I bought a Diamond Rio aeons ago, I recorded 2 internet shows. One was a BBC music program. The other was Shawn's Mac thing, whatever it was called. There were no podcasts in those days. Now the BBC has several podcasts, and Shawn has his usual I could have been a contender, but let's face it podcast. I wrote a review back in the day that Shawn shows a strange addiction. Still is. Best when he does interviews. Of course, there's always that Hersite expat under the bridge. Bart, thank you very much. Bart was the guy who I believe got me the interview with the local newspaper. And they did like a 2-page spread on Hillary and I. By the way, Mo, did you look up that Macumentary thing? Let's see if I can't find it. Go to YouTube.com and search for Macumentary. Macumentary. I don't even know if it's still going to be
Mo's
up
gone.
there.
We all said
Mo's
bye-bye to
gone?
Mo.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it looks like it's nuts. What I'm going to do is I'm going to repost the. I thought for sure I had it up. Joe Rogan hates Shawn King. Oh, okay. Oh, there it is. Mac Addicts Macumentary. Make sure it doesn't start playing. The lovely and talented Digital Drew, who's created the theme music for the show, came up to Vancouver and did this really neat documentary for the magazine Mac Addict. Mm-hmm. And it was called Macumentary. And it was about the show we did back in the late 1900s, late 90s, with myself and Hillary and a bunch of other folks who were involved in it. So if you want to check that out, it's that was from. Mm-hmm. I posted it in 2014, but it would have been before, probably 1999. That show would have been up then. I still had hair. Mac Show Live, it was called back then. That's right. Our good friend Vito More, by the way, Vito sent me a picture that he wanted me to show you guys. His T-shirt says, I was a Mac user when Apple was doomed. Vito says, I've been listening religiously to all the variations of Shawn's show since 1999. I want to congratulate him on 25 years of podcasting. I consider him a friend, and I've been a supporter of the show for many years. I look forward to many more. Cheers to Shawn. Thanks very much for that, Mo. I appreciate that.
That was Vito, not Mo.
Sorry,
not Mo.
Vito. Vito, is it Vito? Oh, Vito and Terry Enns, who both wonderfully nag me all the time. When we first started the show, I just did it for the fun of it. The idea was to do it to get more customers for my consulting stuff. Mm-hmm. So the hope was that my consulting clients who I already had would see that I knew what I was talking about and then get me to come and do more stuff, or they would tell their friends, or this thing would get well known and I would get hired more often. I actually went to local radio here in Vancouver to try to do a tech show for them. And they actually wanted me to do a tech show. They wanted me to do a PC tech show. Oh. And I was like, I can't. First of all, that would be boring as shit because, especially in those days, most tech shows devolved very quickly into tech support. And I had no interest in doing, I never had any interest in doing Mac tech support, let alone PC tech support. So I said, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do a talk show about Apple. And that was insane back then in 94 because Apple was going to go out of business. Apple was a failing company, according to everybody outside of Apple. Just give up and buy a Windows machine, everyone said. There wasn't any software for it. There wasn't any products for it. There wasn't any community of developers or stores or anything like that. So, why are you bothering? That was probably 94 was probably in the middle of the troubles when Apple had a series of bad CEOs, a series of bad products.
That is the 7th studio album by American
what is that?
songwriter Michael Jackson.
Sorry?
Released on August 31st, 1987.
For some reason, I'm getting audio in my headphones. Why am I getting audio in my headphones?
Would you like to hear more?
One of us said something to Siri, and that was Siri talking. It would have been my Siri.
Oh, yes, Siri. I can see she's...
Shut up, Siri.
She's wanting to participate here. Siri alert. Oh, no, it's like... What's her face that kept laughing?
Amazon, yeah. Where was I?
So it was a show originally to get more customers for your consulting.
And so that's when I found out that I could have done the show on traditional radio, but I had to prove that there was I had to do studies to show there was X numbers of potential listeners. I had the money for that. I could have bought time on the local radio station. A lot of these tech guys do that. They'll buy time on the station, and then they'll sell advertising based on that time. And you hope you sell advertising that's worth more than what it costs you to pay the radio station. And you can use the station's services and their microphones and their mixing boards and all that kind of stuff. I couldn't afford that either. So I gave up that idea of trying to be on real radio and started to doing it just the way we were doing it. The ISP that I was working for eventually went under, like most small ISPs did. And we did it for a while in Sly and I did it for a while in our apartment. We did it in Adam's living room. We met up with a company that let us use their downtown Gastown location,
You showed me that
area. And that's one of the reasons why I've always told people why the interview segments are always 14 minutes long. For those of you who are familiar with Vancouver, the Gastown area has a steam-powered clock that's down there. That's a very big tourist attraction. Do a search on YouTube for Gastown clock, Gastown steam clock. And that clock went off every 15 minutes. And because my microphone was next to that window, you could very easily hear the steam clock. So I had to be in commercial break every 14 and a half minutes. Otherwise, the damn clock would go off. That company went out of business. And we ended up doing it, I think, again in our Sly and mine's living room. And then we got hooked up with a bunch of guys out in an area here in Vancouver called White Rock. And those guys are the most professional of all of them. That's when everything was starting to fall into place, that the internet was starting to see that advertising was a thing and that this was a venue that they could use these audio ads because it was really hard to sell ads. It was, for me, first of all, I'm a shitty salesman. My idea of selling an ad is, you want to buy an ad? No? Fuck you. But the other thing is, I also don't like the idea of the host trying to buy ads, going out and being the ad guy. I'm a firm believer, even though I've never taken any journalism school. I don't consider myself a journalist. I'm not a journalist. I'm a firm believer in that separation of church and state, that Chinese wall between editorial and advertising. I don't want to know what the advertising is doing because I know it will affect what I do. That if I know the ad guys are sucking up to company A, I won't say anything bad about company A on the show. Or if an advertiser wants me to test out a product, I know I'm going to be affected by the fact that they're giving us X number of dollars every month. So I'm going to be nicer to that product. I can't be free to say what I want about the product. I've had this discussion with other folks on Twitter. That's why I hate so many podcasts nowadays have what these host read ads, and they're like 5-minute long ads for Squarespace and Casper pillows and all kinds of other bullshit. But it's literally where the host of the show says, we're talking about this, we're talking about this. Oh, hang on a second. Let me talk about an ad now. It's the exact same guy, and it shouldn't be the same guy, in my opinion. It should be a different voice. It should be like real ads. Johnny Carson doesn't do his own. Johnny Carson, what the hell? How old am I? The little guy who does TV. I can't think of any talk shows right now. John Oliver. There's no ads on HBO. Fuck.
No.
The hell am I trying to say? Name me a late night talk show host.
Kimmel.
Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel doesn't do his own ads. He doesn't interview the guest and then turn
And then go, and by the way.
Now they used to do that back in the early days
They
of
did?
TV, but they don't do it anymore. Like Johnny Carson literally would do an ad for cigarettes right there from his desk.
Oh.
And after this commercial break, we're going to talk to the next guest. He would turn and literally, with no
I
break,
didn't know that.
I smoke these, I like these kind of things.
Oh.
But I don't like that. I think
a bit degrading.
it's degrading. It ruins the integrity of the host because I don't believe that
I
you
agree.
actually. And I won't say the name, but you all remember when I used to sub co-host a particular show back on someone else's network, and they said, do the Squarespace ad, and I would say I've never used Squarespace. I'll just make it up.
Yeah, no, that's
Seriously?
false. It's not truth.
So I had to bullshit my way through a Squarespace ad.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I use Squarespace all the time for my website. I've never used Squarespace
You're
in
not
my
very
life.
good at bullshitting.
And that's the
not
other
a
thing
good
too.
role for you.
That's it, exactly. I'm shitty at it.
You are.
But if the owner of that network told me to just make up the ad, maybe they tell everyone else to do the same thing. So it throws into question every host who does their own advertising. They shouldn't do it. So that's the other thing. Now getting it, as DH says, getting a mention is different. Or the host saying, "Hey, this episode is brought to you by Squarespace." That's fine.
That's fine.
That's not a problem.
Because then people can go, "Oh, what's that?"
But these long 5-minute reads,
5 minutes?
Oh, some of them are that long. Yeah, some of them are absolutely that long. Someone said, like on the Twit network. Yeah, the Twit network is notorious for that. Where right in the middle or at the end of a segment, Leo Laporte will start pimping Audible.com and talk about it for 5 minutes. Oh, the last book I listened to on Audible.com was this book and this book and this book. No, have that as a separate advertisement. Anyway. So I was terrible at selling ads. So these guys came along and they were good at selling ads, and they sold a lot of ads. I mean, at one point we were making enough money to support 6 people. And we would fly 6 people to San Francisco and New York for the expos. Sly would organize these amazing parties for us. We were the shit. We were just doing good. And then I think it was late 1999, early 2000. Yeah, 2000. The economy went in the toilet, and the internet ad business went in the toilet too. People just stopped buying ads. And so the executive producer of the show, a guy named Mark, if you watch that mockumentary video, you'll see Mark, decided that we were going to turn, and this is kind of funny given the situation today, he wanted to turn the show into a subscription model, that you would pay monthly for the show, and then you would get extra content. You'd get a T-shirt, and you'd get potential prizes and that kind of stuff. And I didn't like that idea. I didn't like the idea of the audience paying to hear me. Part of it is just, what are you paying to listen to me for? Just don't pay to listen to me. And so it was a big rift between him and I. And basically I said, well, then I'm leaving. If this is what you're going to do, I have no interest in doing this. I'm going to leave. And I did. And Sly and I did Your Mac Life show for 6 months. Then I moved to the States. And it's been Your Mac Life ever since. In Nashville, I met up with Jay Curtis, who is the second best co-host I've ever had.
Oh, yeah.
Well, in some ways that's true, in the sense that, and people have mentioned already, Jay and I had a wonderful connection. It was really obvious that we really liked each other. We got along well. We could tease each other. We could have fun. And you and I are the same way. It's very much that people have said that it just feels like it's Jay again. in a much cuter form. Although Jay was
Jay's
awful pretty.
cute.
Jay
Is Jay
was
the real pretty one?
yeah, Jay's the real
Oh,
freaking pretty
Jay's the
one.
real pretty one.
And so Jay and I did it for many, many years and did a wonderful job. And then the worst host, bar none. Sorry, in that 2000 period, we had Hillary. And Hillary was just a great voice. Hillary had a fantastic, but very dark, not dark, dusky, deep voice, but wonderfully feminine. She was really good. And then went to Nashville, and then when I moved from Nashville to Connecticut, that's when we had the worst co-host of the show. Everybody hated her. They didn't like her at all. I didn't find this out until afterwards.
Yeah.
That nobody was happy with that particular co-host. It was very, and I don't know whether they were just being nice and sympathizing with me because of the relationship breaking up, but people said afterwards that we don't like her at all.
Okay.
Yeah, MacMan. Yeah, sure. Sorry, Shawn. She sucked.
Oh no. Well, maybe she didn't like doing it. Maybe she didn't like.
No, she liked doing it. She just wasn't very good at it.
Oh.
That's the issue. She wasn't any good at it. She thought she was, but she sucked at it. I'm sorry. I still got Vito on the thing instead of our pretty faces. And then in various periods of time in between there, I've done the show on my own, and I've always hated doing it on my own.
Have you?
I've always, I've had people say, "I just like the sound of your own voice." No, I don't. I don't want to just. I've never wanted to. One of the reasons why the show has been cut down from the 2.5, 3 hours it used to be was because when I didn't have a co-host, I don't want to talk for that long.
Yeah.
I want to hear myself talk for that long.
Mm-hmm.
We've had stuff. We have been on the cutting edge of so much technology when it comes to podcasting. As I said, we were podcasting before it was even a word. We were the first podcast to ever do the show live. We were the first podcast to ever do video. First podcast to ever use Apple's QuickTime broadcast streaming server. First to ever use video chat when Apple had iChat. First ones to ever do it live from Macworld Expo. First ones to ever do it live from a cruise ship. First one to ever do a live podcast from Japan. First to ever do, a lot of that's because there was no one else at the time. So we became just de facto first. Everything we did was the first. But it wasn't because we wanted to be first, because we always wanted to try out new technology. Mm-hmm. I've always wanted to try to find different ways to get the audience involved in the show. We used to have a 1-800 number.
Did you?
People could call in and leave voicemails, and we could. When we did have the crew of 6, we could have live call in, because then you'd call into the studio and the engineer would answer the phone, and then he would text me. He would send me a text message of saying, "This is Jim from Arkansas wants to talk about this."
Okay.
And then I could do that thing, push the button. Hey, Jim from Arkansas wants to talk about this.
Right. Nice.
The problem is a lot of that turned into tech support as well too, which is boring as hell. And then when we didn't have the crew and it was just me, it was just one more thing in this mess of stuff I have to do. It was literally push the button and then have to, like, you've heard it 1,000 times on regular radio. Hey, this is Shawn. Who's calling? Hi, Shawn. Am I on the air?
Yeah,
oh, Jesus.
Kinda,
Caller, turn down your computer because you're not going to be able to. Can I hear you? Can you hear me, Shawn? Oh, Jesus Christ. There's 30 seconds of my life never going to get back. So I was like, screw that shit. I don't want to do that anymore. So we don't do that anymore. One of the funny stories was I remember someone telling me that somebody said that I should give away prizes. I was like, I can't afford prizes. I'm not making any money on this thing. This was back in 95, 96. You should give away prizes. Said, no, I'm not giving away prizes. I'm not going to buy stuff to give away to other people. And they said, no, just call up companies and they'll send you stuff.
I was going to say, yeah.
I was like,
no?
Bullshit. No one's going to do this. Yeah, here's my contact at Adobe. Call them up. So I was like, hello, Mr. Adobe. I do a radio show. Could you send me some stuff to give away?
And?
A couple weeks later, this giant frickin' box shows up with copies of Adobe Photoshop 1, hats, T-shirts, coffee mugs, just an insane amount of stuff that Adobe would send out for me to give away. And I thought, this is going to be really cool. It's going to be fantastic. I got to ship this stuff to the United States.
Ship it.
Shit, I can't afford that.
No.
So we just ended up giving it away like for Christmas presents. Everyone I knew got a copy of Adobe Photoshop for Christmas.
Oh, so the company wouldn't just send it out from there. If you said, hey, listen, so this person won.
I then quickly learned exactly that. Don't send it to me up here in Canada.
Don't send it.
Because there's no point
in you.
You're in California. There's no point in sending it me to Canada and me sending it down to Minnesota. You hold on to it.
And
I'll give you their name. You send it to Minnesota.
Right.
Macman says you gave away a ton of copies of Photoshop Express. Yeah, we used to give away a lot of stuff.
So did you see what Monty said? Monty was
not.
talking about what you should do. He was it was Monty's idea to make this 25th anniversary a year-long event. Get a few of the people from the early days to do interviews, live or recorded, spread it out over the coming year episodes. It would be great to hear from stories from the early years told by guilty parties. Original contributors.
So, Monty, you think I should call up my ex-wife?
Well, oh dear. Do not make me find the Superpass song.
Oh, yeah. You haven't heard the Superpass song, have you?
No.
Oh.
Maybe.
I'll do a quick search. If I can't find it right away, I'll dig it up.
Oh, Dave D says, "Oh my God."
Yeah, it's evil.
Oh, Dave D, no. Susan's no. Yeah. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I can't find it right now, but I'll find it later.
I have it somewhere. Says Macman. What is it called again?
The Superpass song.
Superpass.
By the way, I'll get digressed.
Is that like a band I know?
Vito and Terry Enns are constantly, gently, wonderfully reminding me that at that point when I broke away from the previous group, went down to Nashville, the show was sponsored by Griffin Technology out of Nashville. But then when I left there, I went to Connecticut. We didn't have the sponsorship. It didn't last for maybe 6 months after that, and Griffin stopped the sponsorship. And so the show went to an ad-supported model. But because I can't sell ads, I'm lousy at it. I don't think I don't want to do it because I shouldn't be involved in it. I've always pushed back at the idea of me calling up a company and saying, "Hey, would you like to buy an ad?"
But what if your co-host did it?
You?
I'm just saying.
You want to be our ad salesperson?
No. I'm just saying that if you were selling ads, and you wanted a different voice, why couldn't it be your co-host?
Oh, absolutely. I have no problem with that.
Okay.
I just don't want to do it.
No, I get that. I agree with you. I think it decreases the quality of a show, but.
And I would always even if the ad was my voice, but an obvious commercial, 30 seconds long, not 5 minutes like Twit has, but a 30-second commercial. Hey, this is Shawn. I want to tell you about this product. Mm-hmm. It's this, and this. You should really go buy it. Here's the website, blah, blah, blah. Or have your voice do the exact same thing.
I was just going to, I'm just wondering, it would just sound better if it was someone else's voice.
But I don't have the contacts anymore in the industry. And so I've just sort of faded back from the show's now down to about an hour and a half. Depending on my mood that particular night. Mm-hmm. And one of the problems is, and you and I were talking about this before, I think part of the problem is I've been doing this for so long. I've interviewed everybody I want to interview. I pissed off everyone in the community. I mean, I've never been on anyone else's podcast.
Well, if they're
because I pissed everybody off.
Well, if they're going to be that childish,
I'm okay with having pissed everybody off, though. That's one thing I can always say I've done over the last 25 years. I've never held back my thoughts and opinions, good or bad, right or wrong. There have been people, and I can name dozens of people, who have said one thing in private and something else on their podcast.
Yeah, so there's a double.
One thing in person and another thing in an internet website. Somebody on Twit. Twit is This Week in Tech podcasts. Someone at who used to write for Mac Observer literally said one thing. Both of them actually said the same thing. They slammed Macworld Expo. Macworld Expo, this is garbage. This is bullshit. This is the worst show I've ever been to. And then on their podcast and on their websites, that was the best show I've ever been to. Like, you fucking weasels.
Okay.
And because of that, it's one of the reasons why the folks at Macworld Expo, towards the end of that organization's tenure, really disliked me. Because I was the guy saying this show was going to die soon because it's just not doing well, and the people who are running it are lying about it.
And everybody's going, well, yeah.
But if everyone else is saying, this is the best show ever.
So it seems like you were way out in the left field with...
Dave D. Shawn has no social filter.
That's
You're
okay.
not wrong, my friend.
No, it's okay, though.
For better or worse.
Monty the Emperor has no clothes.
Yeah, that's right. And so there have been several times over the years where I've seriously thought about quitting. Because
but you're not gonna.
Well, and this is where Terry and Monty reminding me about this stuff is important. The show is supported by the listeners now. And it's a completely voluntary. It's not a subscription service in the sense that you don't get the show unless you subscribe. There's lots of websites that do that. There's lots of things that do that. And I understand that business model. I don't like that business model. I think people should voluntarily subscribe and pay that money, whether they get the show or not. So I've said for the last maybe 5-6 years, you can go to the website, yourmaclifeshow.com, and right there on the left-hand side, there's a PayPal link, and you click on that, and you can donate $2 or $5 or $10 or $15, whatever it is a month, to the show to help keep the show going. Yeah. The show has definitely gotten a new impetus because of you. I know for a fact that if I hadn't met you back in June, I probably wouldn't be doing the show now. Because I was getting bored of listening to myself.
Right. Yeah.
I couldn't find people to interview that I found interesting except Jim, because Jim and I have always had fun talking to each other. I was actually thinking about just taking the Starting Point Photography segment and making that a new podcast. And because the Your Mac Life thing, in my mind, had kind of run its course. There's all these other podcasts out there. The podcasting community, the Mac podcasting community, is a bunch of incestuous dickheads. They only want to talk to each other. There was one podcast from Britain, I can't remember what it was, had 7 people on the podcast. Oh, fuck off. Yeah. No. You can, simultaneously.
I couldn't. Who's who?
Exactly.
Who's talking?
You can't do that.
No, it's not personal enough. I think podcasts need to be
And they all keep interviewing each other. It's like this little Mac podcasting circle jerk. And we call it the usual suspects. And nobody can break into that crew of middle-aged white guys. Yeah. And it's the same voices talking the same shit over and over and over again. And rhubarb. Exactly. And one of the issues is, and it's not jealousy, it's anger on my part, is that every single Mac podcaster that got his start on my podcast. Gruber and Snell and Morin and Breen and Anatko and everyone that the audience has heard of, who has their own podcast now, started podcasting on mine. And I think a little common courtesy would be nice for them to invite me on their podcast. They never have, because I pissed off every single one of them. Wah.
Have they connected with you today?
No.
Oh.
And they won't. That's for my wife, boys. My sweet little wife just gave you all the finger.
I'm not that sweet.
Monty says, Shawn, there may be new listeners around. Tell them how to connect with the rest of us here in IRC. Monty has set up this if you're an IRC user, it's really easy to get on. Go to the website, yourmaclifeshow.com. Right below the video is the data on how to get into the IRC. But you can also just click right there. You'll see a text field there. You type your name in there, and you'll drop yourself into our IRC channel. It's really easy to use. IRC is not scary at all, especially our IRC channel. It's really easy. Everyone's really friendly. Half the show is always, I've said that from day one when we started IRC. Half the fun of the show has been in the Internet Relay chat as folks talk amongst themselves in the chat room or talk to me in the chat room. So if you're interested in finding out how to do that, send me an email to Shawn@yourmaclifeshow.com, or just go to the website, and right there below the video, you'll be able to see those things. Thanks very much for Monty for setting that up to be very, very easy for the average person to use. What else? So yeah, if you want to see the show go further, you want to see the renewed energy I've gotten because of my beautiful wife.
Did you tell everybody about our...
I was just getting there.
Oh.
It's been so much fun talking to her that we've actually set up our own podcast.
We did it so impulsively. We did it in our pajamas.
We literally, that's right, literally set up the podcast in our pajamas. Came up with the idea and the whole thing. It's called Don't Listen to Us. Which seems fairly appropriate. You really shouldn't. Melissa and I have been having these wonderful conversations. We impulsively met. We impulsively moved in together. We impulsively got married. And so there is a
silly.
There is a whole dimension to our relationship. We're still learning about each other, and we're learning each other's opinions and thoughts. But we also love just talking to each other. And we've been having for the last 3 or 4, 5, 6 months this wonderful. We get up in the morning, we get our coffee, we come back to bed, we just talk about stuff, about politics. Or Melissa will ask, like today, Melissa was asking what's the difference between communism and fascism. Okay, it's a great conversation. So we start talking about that, and so we've decided to resurrect Trash Talk. For those of you folks who remember the old Trash Talk with Jay Curtis and I, it was a fantastic show. This really feels like a very similar version of it. It's called Don't Listen to Us. Anchor.fm/DLTU. Don't listen to us at yml.me. It's available up on the iTunes store. Don't listen to us if you want to look for it there. Logan says, Shawn King is proof that not all Canadians are apologetic. I'm apologetic when necessary, not before. Les says, I miss the real-life get-together YML community time that Macworld Expo provided us. I absolutely do that too, Les. And that's one of the reasons why I was so pissed off at the organizers of Macworld Expo. They killed that show for no good reason and ruined that.
And it will never resurrect.
No, it's very unlikely. I think the days of those kinds of shows are long gone. Very, very specialized shows on coding or programming or those kind of stuff. But that general purpose show, the general purpose expo, I don't think it's ever going to come back. So yeah, please listen to Melissa and mine's podcast. But like I said,
young.
It's the first one.
Number 2's coming up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we did YML Skate Fest. We did YML Bowling. We actually had our own bowling shirts made up. We had our own hockey jerseys made up.
Oh, that's very cool.
We had a wonderful community. We had a lot of fun hanging out, both in the IRC, online, but also in person. I still remember the first time meeting Lesh, and Lesh walked up to me and said, "Hi, Shawn, it's Leslie." And I didn't know who Leslie was because I just knew these people from online.
Right, yeah.
And because of the avatar she used on the forums was just a shot of her eyes, and she's these beautiful violet eyes, and she does this, and I went, Lesh! Oh. I recognized her when she did that, and all I could see was her eyes. It was hilarious. But it was so neat to meet these people. Blue. I'm sorry, Lesh, blue. Oh. They're blue eyes. It was so great to meet these people that we've been chatting to in the IRC for 6 months or a year, that kind of stuff, which we don't get to do very much with social media. You might follow someone on Instagram for years, never actually meet them, or Twitter or Facebook.
Oh, I fell in love with family members I hadn't met yet.
That's right.
On Insta, as they call it in Australia. What did Lesh say? She said something about reinventing yourself, and I so agree with her. Sometimes you have to reinvent yourself. I've lost it now. Just need to recreate yourself every now and again.
Yeah, there it is. You just need to recreate. Yes, it is true. It's absolutely true. But what's also true is that, and this is not a revelation to anybody, but it kind of was to me. I'm a middle-aged guy. I'm married. I've ostensibly got 2 kids, stepsons, 120, 112. I need to get a real job. I need to support my family. I need to make a lot more money. And if I don't do it with YML, and if YML is taking up time from my ability to make money, then I got to ditch YML. You know what I mean? I mean, I've got to help support this family. Right now, Melissa is the primary breadwinner, and that's not good. we should be sharing that kind of stuff. So if I could make the money on YML, that would allow you and I both to do a lot more stuff, a lot more podcasts, a lot more video reviews, a lot more things, because I think you and I together as YML are going to be great because we have so much fun doing it.
Could we not then?
We could, but it's got to be making money. It's got to be a money-making thing. I can't keep going on like this with this just being a hobby. It's got to be a job. And so, folks, if you want to see YML go, it's just $2 a month. It's not going to break you. But if 1,000 people, 2,000 people give $2 a month, that's good. That's going to be great. That's going to let us do a lot of different things.
And then we would do a lot of different things.
Well, one of the things I want to do is I want to hire a real web designer to create a much better website for us. That's already in the works, but it's, okay, I got $100 here, go work for 2 hours. And then they stop because they need to get paid too. There's a whole bunch of things that we could do if this was a real job and not just a Wednesday evening hobby, if you know what I mean.
Yes, yes. And could we sell?
MacMan says, so reading between the lines, if you're not already a donator and enjoy the show, send him a few bucks. That's exactly it. Yeah, that's the bottom line. If you enjoy the show, $2 a month from PayPal or your credit card, we'd appreciate that. Or a lump sum, $50, $10, whatever it might be. Everything will go towards hopefully making the lighting situation. I'd love to have the lights in here permanent and done bail because she's lit beautifully. I look like a ghost. My pallor is awful. I'm teasing. But there's all kinds of things that we could do. So
that is exciting.
If you like the show, please donate $2, $5, $10 a month to Your Mac Life. Go to the website yourmaclifeshow.com or left-hand side there. Just scroll down. You'll see one of the PayPal options. And the other thing is, if you go shopping at Amazon.com, we said this before too, come to our website first and click through. And I've got a bunch of things at Amazon.com, photography things and other things I think you guys might be interested in. Hard drives are on sale. There's a great 5-in-1 collapsible multi-disc printer. There's a fantastic, we use all the time, 8-quart multi-touch, multi-programmable multi-cooker. Olympus TG5 waterproof camera is a fantastic camera. The pressure cooker, cookbook, all kinds of stuff. But even if you don't buy that one thing, as long as you click on one of those links and go to Amazon and then buy something else, we still get a kickback. So keep that in mind too. MacMan says, I easily get my $10 a month out of YML. Thank you very much, MacMan, for saying that. I appreciate that.
Yes.
We're going to do some more things as the anniversary year goes on. I like MacMan's idea, or Monty's idea, or Mosquito's idea of bringing back some people, and I might do that.
That was Monty.
Bringing back some people. Definitely want to try to get Jay to come back, if nothing else. I've lost touch with Hillary and Adam, and Ian is still too pretty to come on the show. I'm not having him on the show. He's seriously. Have you seen Ian?
I've seen Jay. Jay's beautiful. I haven't seen. Oh, hey, Siri.
hey, seriously. How do you... shut up, Siri. Stop interrupting.
No, you haven't shown me...
Doesn't matter. They're all gorgeous. Dave D says, more fun than most movies. Siri is thirsty for Ian. Monty says, I went to my first Macworld Expo because of YML.
Yeah.
That's something we'll talk about at some point, is YML or Your Mac Life... Macworld Expo really cemented for me how much I liked YML because we got to meet the people that we've been chatting to or emailing to.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And look them in the eye and have a beer with them. And you really look forward to that show. I didn't look forward to the show for what Apple was going to announce or what Logitech was going to announce or what Microsoft's going to announce. I look forward to the show to meet all these people who became friends. The Monties and the Leshes and the Moes and the Susan Gares and
Dave said
Dave
something about
D's,
that way that
the
they
Chris
love you.
Breens, and Andy Nacco. And we were a show that really tried to bring those people with us. We were the first show to have the Your Mac Life Hotel. Sly, I wish she was here, bless her heart, did all the work and found a deal for a particular hotel, and the hotel will give us X numbers of dollars off. We'd all stay in the same hotel, which is kind of cool. She
have room parties and stuff?
We didn't have room parties, no. She was one who organized the parties. We had these big 500-person parties with a band and it was a open bar. As I've always said, any party I have is going to be an open bar. I'm not charging you $5 a drink. It's going to be an open bar. So we had Mac Band says, I forgot to click through the YML site before I placed a large Amazon order. Then just send me $5.
Yeah.
Bastard.
He said that last week. I remember. You went, oh, darn it.
Yeah, Sly is too organized for her own good. I know. One of the things I've always wanted to do, right from the very, very, very beginning, I wish I'd had enough money to hire Sly as my organizer.
Yeah.
She is terrifyingly well organized.
Is she?
She really, really is. It's kind of freaky how much she likes
she probably
organizing.
Thrives on that.
She loves filling out forms, and she loves organizing things. She's really good at it. And I always said that, hopefully I said it enough to enough people. When they said, thanks very much for the party, I was like, no. Thank her. I had nothing to do with it. I'm just the guy up on stage because she won't come up on stage. Just everyone always thanks. Sly kept the show together for decades just by her presence. But she definitely.
She was here too.
She's having internet problems again. She's in an old building, and they often have internet access problems. But hopefully she'll be back on next week's show. Let it go there, folks. If you have any questions or comments about anything about what we've been talking about, please send them to us. Email Shawn at Your Mac Life Show during the week, and we'll get them on next week's show. We'll talk some more reminiscing while we are on next week's show as well, too. Thank you guys very much for joining. I want to say thanks very much to the nice folks at KUVRD. I'll send that email website out again, KUVRDcamera.com. If you so wish, you can go to the website at KUVRDcamera.com and get your very own Universal Lens Cap condom for your lenses. I really like these things. You will see them on my cameras for the rest of time. Say thanks as always to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. I want to appreciate him being here for 15 years. I want to say thanks very much to the lovely Melissa, my beautiful wife, for being here. Thank you, sweetheart.
You're welcome.
But as always, the biggest thank you and shout out goes to all those folks who've tuned into the show for all these years. I heard from so many of you over the last few days. They've been listening since 2001 and 1999 and 2 years ago and 10 years ago, whatever it is. I've said this many, many times, and I will hopefully continue to say it. If you like something, tell the person who makes the thing you like. You have no idea how important it is, how gratifying it is to hear people to read emails from people who say, hey, Shawn, I know I don't email you very much, but I've been listening since such and such a time. I love listening to your show. If it's me or a different podcaster or an artist or a writer or a singer, whatever it might be, if someone creates something that you like, let them know. Send them an email. It's really, really important to us creators that we know that the thing we're creating is getting a response from people. Whether this is a good opportunity for those of you who so choose to give a new review of the show on iTunes. We've got a new co-hostess, so review the show again on iTunes if you get a chance. Just go to the iTunes store under podcast section, do a search for Your Mac Life. All the reviews there are old from years ago because I have been asking for them for a long time, so now I'm going to ask. Go to the iTunes store and do a review of the new show. Let's call it the new show with Melissa. And also go to Don't Listen to Us, DLTU. It's going to be, hopefully, when did we do it? Did we do it on Sunday?
We did it on Sunday morning.
On Sunday, maybe it'll be a regular Sunday morning thing. Don't Listen to Us. You can also review that on the iTunes store. So, as always, I've been Shawn King.
I'm Melissa King.
And you've been listening to Your Mac Life. Thanks for joining us, folks. See ya!